I'm the happy sommelier for Plum Market, and I have some very cozy company tonight. I've got Rod Johnson in the Caves of Champagne. I've got Denny Walsh, who's visiting from Bordeaux. He's in front of Chateau Ponte Canet. I have Mike Pfeiffer, who I'm pretty sure is in Ann Arbor.
No, I'm in Detroit.
Are you in? Oh, that's right. You're in Detroit, but you're warming up from your
yes
your drive. Yes. And we might have Jorge Lopez Chavez joining us, wine team leader from Ann Arbor North Campus. And we have rueful regrets, but plenty of comments that are going to come through from our other two wine team leaders, Michael Timpa from West Bloomfield and Jason Kugel from Bloomfield. I nudged all of them to give me a short list of personal favorites. So in addition to tasting our three official champagnes, Tettinger, aka Tettinger, Nicolas Maillard, and Drapier Rosé, we're going to review a short wine list, which I think I neglected to send to you, but I'll make sure you get it after the tasting. And hopefully we'll get it together to post it online as well. You know, these are sparklers that are in the stores that we're not featuring officially, just personal favorites of the wine team leaders. And I always think that personal recommendations are the most powerful. That's what I want to hear. I want to, if I forget to say this later, I want to make sure I say it now. I want to thank you for your faithful company. You know, as I said, these are extraordinary times. And I love the fact that on virtual tastings, the one real upside is nobody's in the back of the room, right? And we don't have to use a microphone. And it's a little bit easier on the body in terms of reaching everyone, but I sure do miss your company, and hopefully you feel the same way we do. We are going to take a hiatus the way we always do in January. We're not sure what form we're going to come back in February or when, but stay tuned and you'll be advised first time we get it together to set a date and a theme and how we're going to have our get-togethers. Let's see, I've got a few more people coming into the waiting room, so I have to keep an eye on that. I think before we actually taste anything, it wouldn't hurt to just talk about champagne for a sec. You know, we are celebrating three champagnes, which by subtext and law in Europe are French, right? So champagne's referring to the method and the region. And, you know, I was thinking to myself, how do you define champagne? And there are really, I think, three short punchlines without getting into, you know, 10 pages of how you make the stuff, the champagne process, which is now, instead of called in Europe, officially méthode champenoise, they refer to it as méthode classique, classic method. Other countries refer to it as méthode traditionnelle or traditional method, or they simply say bottle fermented. So, you know, that's the essence of it is you make wine, you put it in the bottle, add yeast, and in that bottle, it re-ferments. There's another process floating around that's hip right now, especially with the natural guys, called the méthode ancestrale or ancestral method, where the base wine simply finishes its fermentation in the bottle and is often not disgorged, so it can be a little cloudy. The other thing about champagne that's neat is it starts its life out bone dry, and it gets a dosage, which will determine whether it's bone dry, fruity, or slightly sweet, right? So non dosé or brut nature, brut, or demi-sec. I think in Vouvray, they use the term brut tendre, tender brut, which I think is really cool. And then the other thing about champagne, they age it on the lees, on the spent yeast cells in their cellars for years, which absolutely adds to the complexity, the character, and is one of the big reasons why the stuff is not inexpensive, because it's sitting there making them no money for a very long period of time. I'm going to show you a quick Google Earth thing so we can see where it is, because I think these are far more effective than a flat map. So we're in northeastern France. We're not far from Paris. It's the northernmost growing region for grapes in France. There's Paris, there's Champagne to the east. And it has, this is the essence of it, but down here in the southeast, you have a satellite area, Côte de Bar, that will be actually tasting one wine from there and also talking about a couple of others. So within Champagne, you've got 3 primary growing regions, Montagne de Reims, and it's pronounced like Reims, kind of like it's an N, that is famous for Pinot Noir. Epernay, that's famous for, or the Côte de Blanc, I should say, that's famous for Chardonnay. Epernay and Reims are the 2 epicenters in terms of cities, townships. And then the Vallée de la Marne that runs east-west. Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier are planted everywhere. The Côte de Sézanne is southwest. We don't often see commercial champagnes from there. And down here in the southeast, we have the Côte de Bar that we're going to talk about later. So that said, any of you gents want to just briefly touch on the supply issues we're having with champagne? Because it's been a little bit of a adventure, correct?
Well, we've bought heavily, I suppose. So we're in good shape, actually. We foresaw this. A lot of our competitors are out of the big brands, but we started on this very early in late summer, knowing full well that when we got to this part of the year, people were going to be worried about getting champagne. I think we're in pretty good shape. I think if you have some of the more esoteric houses, they might be a little tough to find, but we concentrate on the tried and true, and all of the ones we're showing tonight, we have good supply on. So,
Yay!
Knock on wood. I think we'll make it to the end of the year.
Have champagne prices gone up, Rod?
Well, there's a natural supply and demand. I think champagne and wine, everything has gone up about the same. Wine may have not. We're in the middle of a historic inflation period, and I don't think wine has been immune to that. But I don't think it's gone past what normal current inflation is. So I think we're in pretty good shape. After the first of the year, we don't know. I keep hearing things about more increases after the first, but again, I think by the coming spring and summertime, I think everybody will be back to normal supply-wise. So
Mr. Frank is asking what, yeah, and actually the question is answered by someone, what's behind the champagne shortage? Well, it's like all supplies are dealing with backlog, correct?
Well, there's enough champagne, but it's not in the right spot. That's the big problem right there. Everything can't be shipped at the same time. So again, after the first of the year, when the demand goes down, if there's the perception of shortage, people buy more, and that puts a problem on supply. But the fact is that there haven't been enough containers available to get everything into the country, and then there's been the shipping by truck to get it to where it is. So there's not a shortage. It's just that it's just not in the right place at the right time, and we knew this early and acted on it. And I think we're in pretty good shape. Again, after the first of the year, when the demand drops, I think this stuff will just naturally even out. So whatever increases we're having, I think are actually temporary. It's not a permanent situation.
Yay. By the way,
we hope.
This is very casual, so keep the comments. No, it's not a bad vintage issue or anything like that. Keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. Hopefully Marshall will show up and answer all the pesky questions. And I'm going to hand it over to my friend Mike Pfeiffer, who's going to talk about Champagne Tettinger, the way I like to say it, the way Americans say it, because it makes me feel less snooty. But I think the French would say Tettinger. Can everyone see my my slide? Yes.
Yep.
Cool.
So I'm going to be snooty.
Tatange,
I
yay.
call it Tatange. So Tatange has been around for close to 300 years, not under the Tatange name. It dates back to about 1734. Jacques Fourneau
Yeah.
founded a champagne house named Forest Fourneau. He worked with the Benedictine monks, who at the time were the owners of the region's finest vineyards, and learned how to produce sparkling wine. But in the 1930s, he hit hard times with Prohibition and the Great Depression. In 1932, a wine merchant, Pierre Tatange, or Tattinger, acquired the estate and relaunched under the family name. Tatange, to me, it's the third oldest wine producer in Champagne. I think it has up and around 600 acres of vines.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of vines. But to me, it's what we're having tonight is Chardonnay driven. It is fruity, floral. I don't want to call it. It's a great champagne for celebrations and nice meals, and it covers a lot of ground in its broad appeal, I think. It is, for all of us who are James Bond fans in Casino Royale, the first Fleming movie, Bond described Tatange as the finest champagne in the world. So believe it.
Before he got into Bollinger, right?
Before he got into Bollinger, and yes, and martinis, shaken, not stirred. But interestingly, because I think for many reasons, English bubbles are going to, in the near future, become more prevalent in the market. Tatange has bought some vines and planted vines in Kent, in the southeast part of Great Britain, and they expect to first bottle their first venture named Domaine Evermond in 2023. I think in the past, English bubbles were tough because of the climate, because of the temperatures, and I think basically due to some global warming, it's becoming easier to grow good wine grapes in Great Britain. So look out in 2023 for Tatange's English brother.
Rod and I used an English sparkling wine at an event we did a couple of years ago with University of Michigan, and it was very good. My only comment was, ones I've had have been excellent, but they're ain't cheap,
Well, I had two English bubbles. One was a producer named Bolney, who one of our distributors has lost distribution on. The other is Natimber, and I have a following for Natimber, and what
do you sell it for?
48,
Up there, right?
and that's their cuvee. I was, not to jump ahead about wines in the stores, but I was offered some of their Blanc De Blanc. About 4 6-packs made it into the state, and I have one of them, and it's I have not tasted yet, but it's supposed to be spectacular. But there are 5 bottles left if anybody wants to taste a really good
fine English
British
sparkling wine.
fine English sparkling wine. So there you go.
I love this glamour shot. The guy on the right, Pierre Emmanuel Tettinger, is the guy running the show now for over 30 years, and those are his kids who were involved, Clovis and Vitaly. I didn't know this. It was in the background material that they had for 1 year. Starwood Hotels owned Tettinger, right? And Pierre Emmanuel figured out a way to buy it back. That was neat to see. And I just wanted to show this shot because I think that's a double magnum that they're pouring on some international, undoubtedly, flight in the 60s. And Denny saw that they're cocktail glasses, right? Yep.
At the bottom, it says October 1947.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
That can't be right. Can it? I didn't even read that.
Prop plane.
Air France.
Yeah.
Wow. Too cool. And then this is one of their ancestors bought this in right before World War II, I think. He was in the war and they had him stationed there and he fell in love with the chateau. So this is in what, Louis XV style? Chateau La Marqueterie is their
Marqueterie.
chateau, right?
Yep.
You know, I tasted it a couple of weeks ago, Mike, and I agree with you completely. To me, I hadn't had it in a long time. And I thought the style was really fresh and floral and pretty and lifted and refreshing. And it was brut, but not at all bracing. It was really good. And I didn't expect that sort of, you know, femininity from it, I guess. But it was lovely. You know, it's kind of like revisiting, you know how that sometimes you don't get around to tasting a standard Cabernet producer for 5 years, and then you go back and you go, you know, they're the reason they've got a reputation. What are we selling the Tettinger for?
$49.97.
$49.97.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's lovely, as you say, but I also think it has elegance to it. And I think it's a really great bottle of champagne.
I do too. And it's that beautiful style that embraces everyone, right?
Yeah.
Question, isn't it at the base of the luxury champagne market? I'm not sure what that means. Like entry level, well, it's one of the Grand Mark houses. They've been established for hundreds of years. I think they hang with, you know, what, Moet de Chandon, Perrier Jouet,
Yeah.
etc.
Both, yeah. And they do have, you know, I think you have a slide coming up, the Comte de Champagne that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yes.
So that would be their.
Totally forgot about that.
Their
Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering my slides that I forgot. So this is their ultra premium, right? One of the first ultra premiums produced, and you're not going to believe this, but I remember being at the original London Shop House, and I may dig up an old menu to prove it. I swear to God, we were pouring this by the glass. And I remember Max Pincus, the then owner, looked at me and said, "Do you think we can get like $20 a glass for it?" And this was like in the late 80s. And I thought, gee, I don't know, Mr. Pincus, you know, because we were serving Bouvet Brut, a Loire sparkler, for like $7 a glass, but we got it. Times have changed price point wise, right? Have
That's
any
an
of
old
you
label.
guys, is it? Yeah. Have you had it in recent times?
It's very good. We're selling that for $199.
I'm sorry, I pulled up an old label. I should have been more careful about that. So I'm going to pull up, we got a nice little chatter going in the chat box. Keep it coming. Unmute if anybody wants to ask a question. And this says champagne, but you'll notice that there's some non-champagne bubblies throughout this list. This is not some official sale thing that you're going to find online. This is just a list that we called this week, so that when you march into your store of choice, West Bloomfield, Ann Arbor West, North Campus, Bloomfield, these were hand selected by the wine team leaders. They have them on hand and they like them in particular. So these from West Bloomfield were pointed out to me by Michael Timpa, which I was chatting with the guys before everyone got on. Michael loves to cook. And of anybody I know on our team, when he's talking about wine, and he's pretty enthusiastic about it when he gets around to describing it, he usually will mention a food that he thought harmonized really well with it. So I have a couple of food comments. And the Lallier is one of his favorites. It's non-vintage, but I believe this R016 refers to the base wine, the vintage of the base wine. And I've actually been here. They're located in the Valais de la Marne, but on the far east. And where I was standing, it was so cool. You look north, you can see the Montagne de Reims. You look southeast, you can see the Côte de Blanc. And you were standing in the Valais de la Marne. It was wonderful. And I just, he made a comment that he loves the toastiness of it. His first taste is like biting into toast. And he likes that yeastiness. He adores the fragrance. And he said, brown food tastes good. So that's the smell that he gets from it. I think stylistically, it's right down the middle. It's not unlike Taittinger, maybe a little bit yeastier, a little bit richer, but I like it. And we haven't had supply problems with it, but we haven't been able to get half bottles. The next one, the La Salle, and you guys pipe up whenever you want to, is perennial favorite, Kermit Lynch Imports, and this is one of their top cuvées, Cuvée Angeline. This is a really cool house. It is run by 3 women, grandmother, mother, and daughter. So Angeline is the daughter. She's, I think, late 20s, early 30s, and she's running the vineyards and the winemaking now. And they have a saying, une femme, un esprit, un style. One woman, one spirit, one style. And Mike admitted to me he hadn't had the 2011, but the 2009 knocked him out. And they're known for extended aging and hand riddling. So another premium, but this is the time of year where we like to give nice presents, right? And then we launch into some values, notably, does anyone know how to pronounce that correctly? Is it Juve or Juve and Comp? I don't speak Spanish. Can anyone correct me?
I think it's Juve Comp.
Juve, Comp Reserva de la Familia Brut Nature. So whenever you see the Brut Nature, it's referring to the driest level, whether it's French or someplace else. Cava refers to méthode traditionnelle or méthode clásico, or however they say it in Spanish. Everyone thinks it's always in the Northeast and the Penedès, but it can be in other regions of France as well, or Spain as well. Sorry about that. And what I find really cool about this is I double checked the price. $16.97 looks low to me, but I guess it's accurate. It's been on the lees for 3 years, and you still can't beat Cava wines for a price value relationship, at least in my opinion. And Mike's comment was that it's perfect goat cheese wine because he made a homemade flatbread and he put goat cheese and figs on it, and it was terrific. So you can try that too. And then the Stefan Cyrol Turbulent Rosé is something I really want to buy a bottle of because I haven't had this. This is from a wonderful importer who really import house, Becky Wasserman, very recently passed away, but her thumbprint is always one of quality. And the Côte Rouennaise, I had to actually stare at it at a map. It's Loire Valley, but it is southeast of Sancerre and Montlouis, almost up to Beaujolais. And they're using a clone of Gamay that's white to make this stuff. Actually, it must be some red because it's rosé. And I think it's made by the Senier method, but they describe it as a touch of sweetness. And Mike said it was his brunch wine, especially with Eggs Benedict. So that might be fun to try. And then the Lini is, most of us are hip now that Lumbrusco is not cheap, lesser, or always sweet. This is a dry Lumbrusco made by the Lini family. They're, I think, 2 brothers and sisters running it in Emilia-Romagna. And 4th generation, trademark, excellent dry sparkling red that is not champagne process. It's Charmat, so slightly less fizzy. And then finally, Mike wanted to name this Prosecco, and I really applaud that because there's a lot of commercial Prosecco out there, and some are Riva, Kermit Lynch Imports. Again, as you all know, we have a great relationship with them. He said to me, you know what I love about this Prosecco? It's still modestly priced, but there's complexity there. So, we have a question. How would we rate Taittinger's Napa Sparkling compared with other champagne houses' American offerings? Anybody want to grab that question? I haven't tasted theirs in a while.
I think a lot of the French guys do quite well in California, but let's be realistic here. This is not actually champagne. But their California operation, they're smart. It's done in Carneros, a fairly cool area. I always find theirs just like a lot of the other better ones, and I would say Roederer, and Tattinger would be two of the better houses that came from France and are doing a nice job here, which is they're stylish, they're a little fruitier. You don't get quite that, the crispness that you get in the true champagne, but quite credible in every sense of the word.
I liked your comment. I like Roeder Estate a lot, especially their high-end bubbles. I think that they're always impressive. But I still like Schramsberg too, you know.
Yes, I was trying to keep it just
Mhm.
French to France, French
Mhm.
to California. So those guys, but yes.
Those are homegrown, right?
Yeah, Schramsberg's outstanding.
By the way, the Leany people, go back to Lumbrusco for a sec, they recommend barbecue and Mexican food. And if you want to know how dry is dry for that Lumbrusco, they claim 12 grams per liter sugar. And just to put it in a frame of reference, a brut is what, up to 12 grams per liter? So it's, you know, soft. It's not sweet edged, and a Brut Nature will be south of 5 grams per liter, I think. So when you hear geeks like us talk about that, you can put it in a frame of reference. I think it's your turn to talk about our grower champagne, Rod. Any questions?
Okay.
Everyone's chatting nicely. Yay.
Nicolas Maillard, I
Mhm.
believe. There is, it struck me in the last couple of years, especially when I was buying, that there are more grower champagnes that I could ever begin to actually buy and put on the shelf. And it's not a glut, but certainly a lot to choose from. So I went back and investigated how many are there. And I've discovered, according to Wiki, so maybe I don't know if this is correct or not, but there are roughly 100 houses of champagne, like Veuve, Tattinger, Laurent Perrier, and the such. 100 houses. There are over 19,000 growers, and of that, there are 5,000 of those who are actually producers of champagne. So the number of growers out there are tremendous. If you go to France, they're everywhere. Champagne is not special in France. It's just what they drink. And so there's enough to go around. I'm not sure if the houses dominate the market in France like they do here in this country. I think the grower champagnes are still considered to be edgy, when in fact there's a lot more of them than the big houses.
But isn't it true that most of them are small? So they're selling stuff out of their, you know, their winery, especially to people that are coming there on vacation.
I imagine it's quite a competitive market when you go there, because most of it's the local stuff. Like we have beer brewers here, even though I think it's more of them. This family goes back to, they say, 1533, where they can trace actual vines. In 1753 they actually started to officially grow grapes and get into the wine business. So they've been around for a very long time, just as long as the great houses. It is a small property. It's only have 16 hectares. All of their vines are in the Montagne de Reims, and that is a vineyard that's famous for Pinot Noir, but all three grapes are grown in that region of Champagne. The villages that they pick from or that they own are, let me see, Villars, Aleron, and Ecoy,
right.
Ecoy, and those are Premier Cru vineyards, which means that they're just better vineyards. And they also pick from Bouzy, which is a Grand Cru vineyard, and that's actually one of the most famous Pinot Noir vineyards in all of Champagne.
Can I show this again? I just wanted to show how Ecueil is right between Epernay and Rennes. That's what was really cool about this shot to me. You see Rennes right there, spitting distance from Ecueil, and there's Epernay to the south. Thanks, Rod.
And all these vineyards are actually, all these villages are actually quite close to each other, but Bouzy is the most famous. So you could call this a Premier Cru and a half, or Premier / Grand Cru if one really wanted to. It's kind of unique that they use that much Grand Cru in it. You can see a picture of the stainless steel that they use for part of the fermentation. They also ferment in barrel, and here we are in the barrels. They also use about 30% reserve. So they make the wine, and then to the final cuvee, they'll add 20 to 30%. On pouring the wine today, I was struck that how dark it was. It's for champagne, it's golden, and that's unusual. It's quite unusual, and I think that comes from three different reasons. One is that they pick a little later to get even more boldness into the champagne. They age in these barrels, which is going to impart some color, and then the reserve wines themselves will give you that deeper color.
Does it give the disgorging date on the back, Rod? I forgot to look at the
Yes,
back.
I was just getting to
Oh,
that.
sorry about that.
This is quite unusual. This wine was disgorged May of this year. So if you and they only ship out of the winery after 3 months. So if you take May, add 3 months, shipping it to Detroit, getting it to Michigan, it's about as young as champagne will ever be. So this is as fresh as it can be. And I think that's something to remember, because when I first opened it up, I thought the nose was a little subdued, and then just over about a half an hour to 45 minutes, it kind of just loosened up. So this is one of the few cases I say for this champagne, because it's such a young champagne, that you are best off letting it open up for a while and pouring in a glass and letting that glass sit for about half an hour. And then after that, it will just jump right out and be the rich, full flavored, full bodied champagne that it is. It was on the lease for 3 years, which for growers is about average. I think some of the bigger houses use 4 or 5. But I think what they're trying to do here is take the fullness of the boozy Pinot Noir and balance it to the Chardonnay of the 2 Premier Cru vineyards. So you get a nice freshness. When I smell it, and this is why I like champagne from growers as opposed to houses, because you get a unique style. You get the expression of the terroir. And this is a beautiful example of that. So I get the cocoa and the smokiness of the Pinot Noir, but in the background, there's apricots and pineapples, and there's these tropical fruits. So to me, this is just a revelation as to how champagne can be so different and so personal, and at the same time, do everything that champagne can do. In terms of what I would serve it with, I'm thinking of something like a pork roast, but I think any of the like a salmon, or maybe even a tuna, but certainly bass and things like that.
How dry is it, Rod? How dry is it? How poignant is the acidity?
It's 4 grams per liter. So it's dry, but not austere, because it's a vinous wine. It's kind of like you're drinking wine.
Mm-hmm.
But this does have that sparkle to it, and that's the entertainment part of it. I think they've done a nice job. Cepage is 57% Pinot Noir, 26% Chardonnay, and 15% Pinot Meunier. And again, 4 grams per liter, which is quite dry. But again, it's a dryness that you like, because it's thirst quenching at the same time, but not austere at all.
You'll notice that Rod is there right now. Because these are the bottles that are being riddled, to be disgorged. And I'm going to give everyone the really short version of what the hell we're talking about. If you don't remember or haven't had this explained to you, simply after the second fermentation and you have the wine resting on the spent yeast cells for years, like in this case, Rod said 3 years. That's a long time. They have to get the yeast out, so they nudge it into the neck There are a couple different methods of using it, but classically they freeze the neck and release that plug and then top it up with a dosage that will determine the sweetness. And that when Rod said this was disgorged in May of this year, so it's been on the lees, and the lees, it adds complexity, but it also is an antioxidant. So it keeps the wine very fresh. And there's a lot of back and forth, people talking about, should you age a champagne once it's been disgorged, should you not? It's a style preference, but a lot of the houses are starting to put the disgorging date on the back. Also, I looked up the word on the label. Rod, did you know this? Platine, and at least this is a great glamour shot of Nicolas Maillard. My French dictionary said that platine meant like turntable. I don't know if it means something else, if anyone speaks fluent French out there, but I thought that was sort of an interesting PS. Oh, tell them that this is an exclusive to Plum Market, right?
Yes, it is. At least for the state of Michigan, and maybe it is in other states, but for the state of Michigan, we have the exclusivity of it. We have a pretty favorable situation there. Somebody did chat as to, well, isn't it, if you let it breathe for a while, like half an hour, isn't it going to go flat? My point in saying that the disgorge date was so recent, a young wine like this is going to resist going flat on you. So no, I think half hour would be fine. 45 minutes over the course of an evening. It takes, 2 or 3 people, maybe about 45 minutes to an hour to finish a bottle of champagne. So,
Also,
I wouldn't worry about that.
Sometimes actually, if you walk away and come back, even a couple hours later, the stuff is dissolved in the wine. There'll still be effervescence, but the French sometimes will decant it if they want to get rid of some of the bubbles. They can, assess it more as wine. Thank you for that snapshot of Nicolas Maillard. And Mike, we're coming back to you, right? To tell us about your fave picks.
Yep. So a bit of a mixed bag. First is Charles Eleanor, Carpolance Brut champagne. This is a family-owned producer since the late 19th century. It is 30% Pinot Noir, 30% Chard, 40% Pinot Meunier. This is if you will, an everydayer at $39.99. Vivid lemon peel, acidity, baked pear, almond skin. Just a really nice brut champagne to go with many meals. The second is the Coutier Ambone Grand Cru Blanc De Blanc Brut Champagne. I've had Coutier, their Brut for years, and I think the first time that I had it was recently at a distributor's tasting, and I think Rod if I remember Rod's notes, might second me on this. This was, of all the champagnes, my favorite in a room full of champagnes.
Wow.
It is from the Grand Cru village of Ambone. The family has owned it since 1619, or owned the property since 1619. The estate was founded in 1880. This is just complex with notes of lemon citrus, green apple, stone fruit, white peach and apricot, fresh herb. This goes well above the price that we have it at. This is one of my favorite champagnes on the shelf, particularly at this price point.
It's quite rich. Is that the style? Because it's Ambone?
No, I didn't find it really rich. If Rod remembers, he may differ, but I think it was just a fantastic Blanc De Blanc champagne. So
that's right, 100% Chardonnay. So actually, the style would be a little bit more sleek and pear apple and citrus.
I'll just jump in there for just a little bit. Ambone is near Bouzy up in the Montagne de Reims.
Right.
And it's known for Pinot Noir. And these guys here are one of the the top estates making Pinot Noir dominated champagne. This is a special cuvee. So they have a special vineyard that's all Chardonnay inside of a Pinot Noir area. And the vineyard itself gives them this special Blanc De Blanc. So it's a little different. So you don't get quite just the lemon and the sleekness. You get a little heftier, almost a white burgundy style sparkling wine.
Neat.
So it is in its own area. And this is a grower. So again, growers can do this. They can just give you something that you can't get from anybody else. So my hat's off to them.
Next up is Andre Clouet's Anjou de 1911 Grand Cru Brut Champagne. This is 100% boozy. This is 100% Pinot Noir. It is in the better vintages they do this offering, and this is 50% fruit from the 2008 vintage, and then 50% from 3 other vintages that they blend together. This one is as I said, all Pinot Noir. This one is a powerful, rich but elegant champagne. Interestingly, the name comes from, they only make 1911 bottles of this when they make it. And this number commemorates the date of the revolt that defended the origin of champagne. For all you historians out there. As I said, this one's a rich one. This one would go well with certain red meat dishes, lamb, things along those lines.
Is this a Blanc de Noir? It's all Pinot?
Yes. Yep. 100% Pinot.
So it's really neat. We've got a Blanc de Blanc and a Blanc de Noir next to each other. There's a little background noise. Somebody might want to check if you're rambling around that you're muted unless you want to speak up. Go ahead, Mike.
Next is the Vazar Coquer Special Club Grand Cru Blanc de Blanc 2013. Rod has been talking about grower champagne quite a bit. The Special Club is kind of the creme de la creme of grower champagnes, and it is they are rated or graded by the producers, other grower producers, and they have to they only use the highest quality grapes. They must be. This is produced in the best. They must produce the best cuvées to be part of the Special Club. 20,000 bottles of this were produced. This spent 6 to 7 years on cork and not crown cap.
Not crown cap. So, and
Yeah.
why do they say why?
I haven't been able to find out why they say. I don't know. I'm really not sure why that would. What there must be something that I'm missing, but.
We're moving into nerd rabbit hole land, but
Yeah,
when we talk about the crown cap, it's like a little bottle cap actually, that is what seals the champagne while it's on the lees. So it's very unusual for champagne houses to use actual cork while it's aging on the lees. By the way, to overstate the obvious, the big champagne houses, the Grand Mark champagnes like Taittinger, etc., they own vineyards too. They just don't, their production is much larger. So they buy from growers. The grower champagnes we're talking about are exclusively using their own vineyards, and their Dom Perignon, if they produce them, they belong to the Grower Champagne Association, is produced as a special club, right, Mike? That's specific to grower champagnes.
Yes, yeah, and it's a special designation and a special honor to grower champagne. The next is actually Franciacorta, which is in Italy or from Italy. Caldabasco is, if not the original producer of Franciacorta sparkling, one of the original producers. And Anna Marie Clemente is the woman who founded Caldabasco. There are, as far as I know, 2 Caldabascos available in Michigan. One is their regular cuvee, which I carry. I know Jorge carries. I'm not sure about West Bloomfield, but if you've never had Franciacorta, it is well worth seeking out. The Caldabasco cuvee that we carry is about $40 a bottle, so it's not hugely expensive. Well worth the $40 to go find it. In the better vintages, they create the Anna Maria Clemente, and this is the 2011 Anna Maria Clemente Franciacorta. It is highly allocated. There's not much that comes to the United States. I think Michigan got 8 6-packs of it.
Holy moly.
Yeah, when it came in.
Nothing.
No, and it's 65% Chardonnay, 20% Pinot Blanco, and 15% Pinot Nero or Pinot Noir. This is a complex, elegant, delicious sparkling wine. Can't call it champagne, but like I said, if you've never had Franciacorta, you really should seek out Franciacorta. They are just making fantastic bubbles.
No, and I mean, the price point can hang with champagnes in that price point. And it's absolutely, champagne method, and Caldabasco is one of the pioneers.
Yes. If you have some time, if you look up Caldabasco's website, it's a beautiful property. They have their own kitchen, own chefs. They've created dishes that go with their Franciacortas, and it's really an interesting place. Lastly is what we lovingly call Gabriel. This is Cremant Loire. This is, we've had Rod, I think, originally brought it in through one of our distributors, the same distributor who brought in the last champagne. This is an estate that goes back to 1849. It's 50% Chardonnay, 50% Chenin. And for $17.97, it's full of white fruits, lemon, apricot, elegant bubbles, and just a delicious example of what Cremant Loire can be.
Dry?
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And $17.97. Yeah.
And $17.97.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're moving on to our rosé. Yes, everyone's being very well mannered and quiet. Anyone want to make some noise? No? You just need to drink a little more champagne, I think, or we can get Pippin to bark. So Danny, let's talk about rosé champagne, specifically Drapier.
Okay, well, Drapier is like many of the other champagne houses, a house that's been around for quite a while. It's been owned by this current family since 1808. And the children of the current winemaker will be the 8th generation. And so it's one of those interesting family situations. It's we were fortunate at Plum to get some of this several years ago. It's quite popular in Europe, but they never really have established themselves that well in this country. And the supplier approached us when we were looking for a reasonably priced entry-level brut and rosé, that he would help us out to get this established in Michigan. And over the last 3 or 4 years, Plum has become the largest seller of this in the country.
No kidding, huh?
It's so it's got a great history. What fascinates me with this is I've always liked rosé champagne. I think I brought a flute out tonight to put it in, and it adds a dimension of enjoyment to me when you have the tall, slim, chimney-shaped flute with the rosé sparkler in there, and you get the bubbles going all the way up to the top. And that also helps to concentrate the nose as well as slow down the dissipation of the bubbles. So anyway, this particular property is south and east of the area that we've been talking about with the 2 major cities. And they are 130 acres, of which 70% is Pinot Noir, which would certainly suggest that they're going to be making a lot of rosé champagne.
Here we are in the Aube. Right, and
Yep.
I want to go back to this. I love this because it says that they're in Urville, which is a township in the Aube, which is a department. It's like saying a large county or a small state, and in the region Côte de Bar. But they also have cellars in Rennes, in Champagne proper, further north. I forgot to mention the fourth thing about Champagne that's its biggest thumbprint, and that is the caves, the chalk, where you can, look at Rod's picture. You can go up and put your hand right up against the wall, and it's cold and it's damp, and you pull it back and it's chalk, it's white. So sorry, Denny, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, and I'm sure
this
that
was, yeah.
they established a cellar up in Rems so that they would have, could have a visitor center up there probably.
Mhm.
So they have, of all their vines that they've planted of the three major grapes, they're 70% Pinot. And this particular rosé is 100% Pinot Noir, and it's made in the old method of Saignée. And this is a process where you're bleeding the skins to concentrate the color of the wine from the actual skins of the grape, as opposed to adding Pinot Noir juice to the fermenting wine to give it color. So this is
It's unusual for Champagne, right?
it's a little more
Saignée
difficult,
method.
but this is what they do, and they do this inexpensive one, or a relatively inexpensive bottle. And then their two grand marks are one of them's a rosé that they also do in the same method. And so it's a little bit more costly process, but it's one that they're very proud of, and this is something that they've continued to do. And one of the this is 100% Pinot, so when you get your nose in it, it's very strawberry, red fruits. And I think that's one of the things that's dramatically different than the other two that we've tasted so far tonight. It's quite intense in the nose, and yet it's also bright and delicate. And I think generally when you have a Pinot Noir Champagne, it's going to be a bigger, more full-bodied wine. This has richness, and yet it is also, in my opinion, refined and delicate. So it's a really approachable wine. Sometimes you use the word pretty. I think that fits this wine. So it's elegant, pretty, and yet it's got some substance to it as well. Rosé is just a special type of situation. I think somewhere I read that it was 10 or 15% of the champagne that's made is rosé. So this is a Drapier family. The gentleman in the middle is Andre, and they describe his age as he's seen at least 65 vintages.
How is
They don't say when that was, but the gentleman looks like he's kicked the can around the vineyard for a while. And then his son and wife beside him, and then their three children. So they're all involved in various capacities at the winery. And it continues to be a family-owned operation. They use horses out in the fields, much like they do at Chateau Pontet-Canet, which is the background on my my shot there, my screenshot. And just very, very involved in the organic process. They have tried to use very little dosage, so the wines all tend to be quite dry, and very little sulfites.
Right, that's their thing. And also, they really brag about being the first carbon neutral champagne house. So, they're really committed to like electric vehicles, solar panels, the whole bit.
Electric vehicles and horses. Now, that's a great combination. So, the bonus, I think, in this whole situation with Drapier is that we have at Plum unbelievable price on this. Generally, if you're buying a rosé champagne, it's going to be $15 to $20, frequently more expensive than its comparable brut that's not a rosé. This bottle of Drapier is available at $39.97. So if you haven't had a rosé champagne. It's a fun item to try. This is a very good and yet also very reasonable entry-level pricing, but far from an entry-level bottle. So
That's perfectly said, because when I tasted it, actually used the word delicate. And it's funny, I was tasting it next to the Tettinger, and both of them had a delicacy, but I didn't expect it in the rosé,
Right.
which was lovely. It doesn't mean you can't have it with rich food. It will work great.
absolutely.
So
Someone
they brag
mentioned
about
salmon
this
earlier, but
yeah.
great bottle to consider for New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, just to try something a little different and still not break the bank. You can buy 2 bottles for the price of some of the other rosés.
So now they also like to let it be known that they're one of the few champagne houses that have vineyards planted to heirloom grape varieties. Arbonne, Petit Melier, Blanc Vrai, which is Pinot Blanc, and Fromenteau, which is Pinot Brie. And you don't see that mentioned. You know, you always hear about Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, but there are other allowable grape varieties in Champagne, and Drapier uses those. Oh my God, this is the slide. I almost forgot we were showing this. I don't think, have you guys ever seen somebody have an egg that's not cement? This is the
Nope.
first oak egg I've seen. Rod, Mike?
No, no.
They were inspired, they claim, by seeing cement eggs. So they had their barrel maker, they custom made this for them. And the whole thing with eggs is that the wine circulates without having to agitate it, you know, with bâtonnage. So it's pretty gorgeous, and I've never seen one. And I think we should talk about some of the yummy sparklers that are at
The Oakland County
Bloomfield.
stores.
Yes, the Oakland County stores. So we've got Bloomfield Township, and I'm speaking for Jason Kugel. I don't know if you guys have, you know, you must have met Jason. Some of you go to the Bloomfield store exclusively. It's much tighter than the West Bloomfield store, but you know, it's packed with great wine. And Jason recently took over from the wine team leader, Patrick Mulrooney, that had been there for what, at least over 5 years?
5 years anyway.
Yeah. And Jason, however, has been his right hand for a very long period of time. And I'm personally thrilled to see him in charge. He adores wine. So when he gives you a personal recommendation, know that it's from the heart. He also, you know, is very eloquent when he talks about wine. He's got 3 champagnes here, 1 Spanish sparkler and a Cremant. The 3 champagnes, the first one, the Pierre Gervais Grain de Sel, is an extra brut, so bone dry. And this is also from the Aude, the Côte de Bar, the same growing region that Drapier comes from. And Drapier is a wonderful producer, but significantly bigger than, they're not exclusively a grower champagne. And the guy who's running it is young. He's in his 20s, family owned and operated. Again, importer Becky Wasserman. He calls himself a Burgundian and says it proudly. I'm not really sure what that means in terms of the style, but Jason likes this particular, the richness of this particular champagne. And he calls it not too austere, even though it is an extra brut, it's creamy. And then the Pierre Peters has been around for, sorry, I skipped Bruno Paillard. Well, let me talk about Pierre Peters. I remember when Terry Teese was an importer who, starting about 20 years ago, I think it was Terry and Kermit Lynch that started bringing all the grower champagnes into the US, right, guys? And Pierre Peters was one of the first to really, you know, get on a lot of wine lists, and they're known for their Chardonnay dominant wines. And this particular one is indeed, I believe, a Blanc De Blanc. 3 years on the lees. We keep talking about the, you know, the amount of time on the lees, because it will gently but radically change the quality and the style. Lots of brioche in this one. Bruno Paillard is, again, 3 years on the lees. And this is an extra brut as well. I didn't name that, but it is extra brut. And significant richness on this. And they claim reserve wines for 50% of the blend. What that means is they're, Krug talks about it a lot. What 40 to 60% of the base wine is from reserve wines. Those are past vintages that they use to make sure that the style is consistent. And this is relatively low dosage, 6 grams per liter. And then we're going to jump to Raventos, who was originally the original great cava producer, but Pepe Raventos got annoyed with the quality or lack thereof of Spanish cavas in the Pinedes. Doesn't use the word cava on his labels anymore. But it is, absolutely classic method and staggering values. I mean, they flutter between what, $20 and $40 on a bad day, even for his best cuvées, a super value. And this is a rosé, so it's got a little bit of cassis quality and a creaminess, according to Jason. And finally, the Crémant d'Alsace. So Crémant, which, when you think about Crémants, you're talking about what? Crémant d'Alsace, Crémant de Loire, Crémant de Bourgogne. And this is 100% Pinot Noir. By the way, what's the stat, guys, that Champagne is the only sparkling wine in France that can be made with the addition of red wine? Is that correct? And that's why when Denny was talking about the Rosé de Seigneur, there's no addition of red. I wanted to clarify that. So most rosés are made by skin contact, not with the addition of red wine. He says this has flavors of cherry and watermelon, really juicy, and it's elegant, but it has serious charm. And these guys, Lucien, I believe he pronounced it Albrecht, are pioneers for this category. Sparkling wine made in Alsace from the Champagne method, dating back to 1971, and the AOC to separate it from Champagne took place in 1976. So I don't think Jorge's going to join us. So we should probably, between you and me, Mike, we can talk about Jorge's selections. Does that sound like a plot?
We can give it a shot.
Well, there's Andre Clouet, right? Only this is a different cuvee. This is their
So this is that's the Brut Nature. Their silver label, the Brut Nature. A wonderful example of a Brut Nature style champagne. Low sugar, dry, as I remember, just dry as a bone, but a wonderful champagne. Pier Monk.
I've been there. I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Pier Monk, even though it's got a guy's name on the label, forgive me for interrupting, if you go there, it's his, it's not dissimilar to Champagne La Salle. You've got the grandmother Odile, the mother Nicole, and the daughter Valerie that are making the wine and controlling the estate. And I got to tell you, if you like Blanc De Blanc, if let's say you like the style of Pierre Peters or what have you, I just think they are so sleek, just great elegance and finesse. And they're located in Menil-sur-Orge, which is, one of the more famous communes in the Côte de Blanc. I just love the style of their wines. Thank you for letting me interrupt there for a moment.
Next is Ravento, same as, so Jason had the Denis, and the Blanc de Denis means that they picked it at night on the rosé. This is, Jorge chose the Blanc de Blanc, or the Blanc y Blanc. So Pepe Raventos was disenchanted with cava. He was disenchanted with the quality and the kind of the commercialization of cava. He actually created his own AOC. It's, forgive my Spanish, but it's Concha del Rio Anoya. And he has, or the Raventos family has specific vineyards that are unique enough that they have created their own unique growing area, and
They're the only ones who use it, correct?
we're the only ones who use it.
Yeah.
And same grapes as Cava, but this is a different level of those grapes. And I used to sell Raventos. I'm a big fan of Raventos, and their Blanc de Blanc, to me, rivals for $22, rivals many champagnes out there.
Anything. Right.
Yep.
It's true.
And the rosé is to me just a great rosé. They'll tell you why they picked it at night, but it is, to me, it's not like the Drapier. I think it's a little more it's a more delicate than the Drapier, but a different version of rosé for not a bad price point. The Big Little comes from Leelanau Peninsula. It comes from two brothers who actually are from Ann Arbor originally. And this is their C3 Pinot Brute. Interesting.
Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Gris, right? 3 Pinots.
Yeah. And they are actually the gentleman who took over for Larry Maubey when Larry
Right.
retired. And they now also are the winemakers at Maubey. This is a great example in that Michigan can produce wonderful sparkling wine, not only from Maubey, but this is a great example of a sparkling wine from Michigan, dry.
They say it goes with movies and popcorn. You know, they have a very playful website and menu, but I'm with you 1000%. I think not just their sparkling wine, but their still blends are really cool.
Mhm.
What they make, a red and a white mixtape. I mean, they're really one of the fresh new ambassadors for where Michigan's going.
We were up last year, I think, and tasted 2 vintages of their Gamay. And I think they produce wonderful Gamay, particularly in addition to all the other things they produce, but their Gamays are fantastic.
Look who's here. Jorge just showed up.
Well, good.
Jorge, honey, we're doing a great job for you, but if you get, we just started talking about the Big Little C3, but we're gonna let you take the ball and tell us about the wine from Georgia. Welcome. Are you there? Let's see, I let him in. I don't see you. Can you unmute and show yourself? Jorge, did he get lost in the waiting room? Oh, I was so excited to see his name come up. Maybe he's having techno difficulties. Let me see. Hold on just a minute. Is he there?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yay. Can you
Say
wave?
something, Jorge.
There you are.
Hold on.
Okay, cool.
Just in time for his wine from Georgia.
Yes, your wine from Georgia.
Yeah, because we were all at a loss on this one, Jorge.
Yeah, I looked it up, but I'd rather it come from your mind and your heart. It is very fitting that you're the caboose on this wine. Welcome. Very happy to have you here.
Yes, no problem. Well, you texted me yesterday and you asked me to come up with 5 wines that I enjoyed. And that was one of the ones that I remember because, as I said to you, once in a while, I just like to think outside the box. So, you know, a wine from Georgia. I've been into some of the Georgian wines, the still wines. This is the only sparkling wine I've tasted. And I remember truly enjoying it about 2 years ago when I first tasted it. 2015 is the vintage. I have not tasted it in probably a good year and a half, but yeah, it's made, you know, in those amphora that they bury underground and with a native grape of Georgia, and then method champenoise. After that, the wine is intriguing, and you all just have to taste it. I think I have 9 bottles left. Come and get them.
So what's the Orgo's the producer, right?
Yes,
Mitzvane, is that the
that's the grape.
that's the grape? And
Yeah.
my bad, I didn't put the region down, Carcati, which is
Yes.
that's the region. So, you know, that's why Somebody invented Google Earth and Google Maps so we can look this stuff up. Now you described it to me earlier. How would you describe the style of it? Is it like sleek, rich, light? How dry is it?
It's a richer style. It's not
Mhm.
sleek by any means, but
Mhm.
it's got some citrus qualities. I would say it's a little fleshier than some of the other wines that we have. For example, the Moncuy that I love, it's like the complete opposite of this wine. You know, the Moncuy sleek is poignant. It's got an edge. It's just lovely and elegant. This one is a little bit more rustic, but once in a while, we need rusticity in our lives, I think. Right, Dan?
You're a Peruvian peasant. I'm a Greek peasant. So,
That's right.
I'm with you 100%. Thank you for picking the Moncuy because I interrupted Mike so I could talk about it because I've been lucky enough to be there. I just adore their style. And you said it. What did you say? Poignant, sleek. It's just the opposite of rustic, right? It's like
Yes.
a ballerina on point. But was the store busy today?
It was, and I couldn't get out until close to 7, and there was a little accident here in Ipsy that kept me from coming home a little earlier, but I made it through.
That's great. Is there anything else that you're excited about that you're selling these days in bubbles or otherwise, since we missed your company? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. You did a really nice job of pulling these together for us.
Well, the other thing that I mentioned to you, Madeline, is like I always try to bring something Michigan into the game. I do think that in the 25, 30 years that I've been doing this, Michigan wine has gotten so much better than it used to be, and I'm very happy to bring a sparkling wine that I really enjoy. Again, it's been a couple of years since the last time I tasted it. I tasted it up north, so I'm sure that you know about this. Sometimes you taste wines in a setting with the winemakers, looking at the vineyards, and everything tastes beautiful. And that's what I remember. But I have tasted the wine at the store, and I still think it's a quality wine. 3 Pinots, Gris, Blanc, and Pinot Noir, from All Lead on a Fruit, done by the 2 guys that make all of the Moby wines and have them for years.
I'm so glad you're talking about Michigan because I was lucky enough to go in September. And, I actually have, note to self, about 2 cases of wine I brought with me that were some of the best. Then I asked them if they could send them downstate so we could taste them. And my impression was, much to Mike's point, Gamay is on the rise as being a quality leader. A lot of people are making really good sparkling wine, taking nothing away from Mobby, but especially they're getting good at it when when the polar vortex years, right?
Yes.
You've got a producer called Two Lads that's specializing in top sparkling and Pinot Noir production, just in case you think Pinot Noir has gone away. It hasn't. This is a guy that made Pinot Noir in Oregon. You've got real leaders like, Left Foot Charlie and Mari that are, visionaries who are making consistently really good wine. And you've got almost every tasting room is pouring Blaufränkisch and Gruner Veltliner. And I found that the quality level is just really high and climbing. Dry Riesling to me still stops my mind at its best, but it's not always, what you would call friendly, but and not just the north, but everyone, the southwest too, which is what very interesting. Lake effect, yes. Cool climate, yes, but they actually have slightly warmer climate, and they can harvest 1 to 2 weeks earlier than up north. That's why they can get a better luck with Bordeaux varieties, particularly Cabernet Sauvignon. But up north, I tasted gorgeous Merlot and Cabernet Franc. Notably, Mari's current vintage of Merlot is just beautiful. Sparkling wine. Left Foot's making something called Gitali, named after his daughter's middle name, that is Sanskrit for melodious. This is what a soulful person Brian Ulbrecht is. But You know, Mike and Jorge go up north more often than I do, and I was jealous, so I went in September, and I was really inspired by the quality level. And thank you, Randy Frank, for saying that. If we ever get back to live tasting, we should do one higher end Michigan wines. Absolutely, I would be thrilled. And you know what? I did a private one, I kid you not, 2 nights ago, using that Gatali Sparkling and Mari's Merlot to prove the point of the quality of Michigan wine to a group of people who are regional organizers for symposiums and considering Michigan. And I wanted to really punch the quality level of Michigan wine. So this isn't just my heart talking, it's in the glass, as the saying goes. So thank you, Jorge, for jumping on. I really appreciate it. And Mike and Denny and Rod, I have to tell everyone who's listening, a great joy in my life is the team I work with. And these gentlemen are special. You know, they know it. And Paula's here too. Wave, Paula. Paula's the assistant wine team leader at the West Bloomfield store, shoring up very hardworking Michael Timpa. She and I worked for years together on premise. So we're side by side when it comes to doing stuff in person, and we can't wait to polish glasses for you. So that said, you're not going to hear from us for a little while, but I promise you that we'll send an email out the minute we get it together and figure out what we're doing in February. But we can't thank you enough for your faithful companionship in these extraordinary times. Any of my friends want to say a parting shot?
I just want to thank Jorge for jumping on about the Georgian wine, because I had no idea where we're going. No, it's a pleasure to work with the team. I enjoy these conversations, and I enjoy the virtual tastings. I learn a lot from everybody and from the guests we've had. So Madeline, well done. And hopefully in early 2022, we get back to polishing glasses and bugging Jorge at Plymouth Road store. So
Who's this Jorge?
Madeline?
Jorge's the wine team leader at Ann Arbor North Campus. Hi, Robin. Hi, Norm.
Hi.
Hi.
Wish you happy holidays, happy new year, and a better next year. Hopefully we'll be done with this COVID. So
No, absolutely.
And,
Amen to that.
And a lot of fun drinking these wines in isolation.
But we have Rex and Liz with us, so
Oh,
they're
excellent.
okay. So okay.
You know, hopefully everyone, to their point, will be able to enjoy the holidays, at least with a group of people that you can relax with. And oh, I got the nicest compliment. This kept me as sane as it kept you. I have to be honest with you, because I've said this more than once, and I mean it from the depth of my little Greek heart. For me, wine doesn't exist without you. You know, I don't enjoy it in isolation. I want to share it. I want to talk about it. Specifically, I like talking to my colleagues, but I like talking to consumers, and that's with the capital C, the
That's
guests,
good.
that, you know. I mean, you make me use normal language, which I've always been grateful.
By the way, Madeline, this hasn't kept me sane. There's nothing that can do that.
Kept Robin sane. There we go.
Yeah, okay. No.
And if you're interested in stopping by West Bloomfield this Saturday, Madeline will be in the department.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
Don't forget about that.
In the flesh, in the flesh.
In the flesh. I'll be making recommendations in my little short self with my mask on and everything.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy a glass of champagne as you celebrate the holidays with your families. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Danny. Good to see you.
Bye.
Hi, Nathan. Paula just went away. Thanks, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take good care.
Okay.
Bye.
Enjoy it.
Bye.